how do you revise effectively? Now, I often speak to students who've not done so well on a test, and you ask them, so what do you think went wrong? And they'll say to you, well, I didn't revise, or they'll say, I revised, I'm not sure what's gone wrong. And in this case, it's often about the effectiveness of your revision. So this question about revision tips and techniques is incredibly important. Now, chemistry, like physics and maths, requires a lot of practice. So tackling practice papers is often a good place to start. Whether you've read through your notes or sort of tried to commit things to memory, it's often very useful to actually do a practice paper to allow you to work out what you know and what you don't know. So doing it and then marking it using a mark scheme will allow you to identify which bits of the topic or which bits of the subject you don't know and which bits you know really well, so that you can focus your revision on the bits that you're struggling on. So targeting your revision is very important. Now, in terms of tips and techniques, it depends on the type of question you're trying to answer. Now, the easiest type of question at A level is one that requires recall, so just remembering something and writing it down. And there are a number of ways of sort of revising to allow you to remember better. And many of you know and use flashcards, and those are incredibly important. So having a deck of cards on a particular topic and then sort of flashing through, trying to remember what's on it, and then sort of flipping it over and checking that you've got it right and repeating that over and over again. That is a tried and tested method for trying to remember bits of fact, and it works very well for chemistry. Now, of course, you need to be able to apply the knowledge that you've been able to recall. So, for instance, if you're being asked to write or draw a mechanism, then it requires you to be able to apply some knowledge. And I find, and I think a lot of students will agree with me, that with that type of question where you're applying knowledge, it makes a lot of sense to write down sort of your thought process as you're trying to answer that question. So if you see a question and you're sat there reading it and sort of trying to gather your thoughts, at the same time try to put down the key points you want to make, and that often, and do that as part of your revision process. Writing things down as you're trying to remember them allows or reinforces that sort of memory retention. So I think that's a pretty good thing a good habit to build into your revision process. So don't just read, make notes, sum up what you've read. Another thing you can do to help build and store information is to try and sort of, having read your notes or having read your textbook, so close your notes, put your textbook away, and then try and sum up in bullet points the key things you've just read as an exercise. And then when you think you've listed down everything you need to do, you then want to check against what's in the textbook. That's another effective way of trying to remember stuff. Okay, so we talked about a number of techniques for revising. So all of these can be sort of put under the heading of active revision. So not just reading a textbook, but doing things that allow that retention of the facts and allows you to be able to recall these a lot better. Okay, so do remember this, active revision. So not just reading, but writing, summing up whatever you've read with your notes put away, but also tackling some practice questions on what you've just read.